Okay, here is chapter 9 and 10 for those of you who missed it so you'll know what's going on. I was so anxious to try to find out this friend-making idea from Grandpa, I trotted all the way home. Instead of going into the house, I went straight to the cellar and I filled my pockets with apples. As I was shutting the cellar door, Daisy showed up. Looking concerned, she said, "Jay Barry, if you don't stop feeding our apples to those monkeys, we're not going to have any apples left. I was looking in the barrel this morning, and it's sure going down." "Aw, Daisy," I said, "you're always snooping around. We got plenty of apples." "We won't have if you keep feeding them to those monkeys. All you're doing is making them fat." Burning up, I said, "Daisy, if it'll make you feel any better, you can stop worrying about our apples. I won't be needing any more because I'm pretty sure I'll catch those monkeys this time." Daisy laughed and she said, "Seems like I heard that before, Jay Barry. How are you going to catch them this time?" "I'm going to make friends with that big monkey, that's how. He's the leader, and once I get on the good side of him, I believe I can catch every one of them." With a disgusted toss of her head, Daisy said, "Oh, for goodness sakes, Jay Barry, you can't make friends with those monkeys. Every time you get close to them, they almost eat you up." "You just wait and see, Daisy. Don't be surprised if you see me coming in with all those monkeys." She laughed again and said, "Jay Barry, if I see anything like that, I won't be surprised. I'll probably faint." "Well, you just better start fainting then," I said, "because you're going to see it all right." I wanted to get away from Daisy as soon as I could, but I lost a good 30 minutes having another go-around with Rowdy. He had followed me for a little way, but when he saw I was going towards the river bottoms, he sat down on his rear and he refused to come with me. I tried scolding him and shaming him at first, but it did no good. Rowdy just ducked his head and wouldn't even look at me. Then I tried sweet-talking him into going with me, but he wouldn't budge an inch. I got around behind him. I lifted up his rear end. I tried pushing him. It didn't work. He just laid down in the dirt. I had one trick left, and it was a good one, because it had never failed. I sat down. I buried my face in my arms. I made a lot of choking, sobbing sounds like I was crying. Rowdy couldn't stand it. He came over whimpering and whining and licking me. I loved him up a little, but got to my feet and walked on. Rowdy came, but his heart wasn't in it. Instead of staying in front of me, he stayed behind with his tail between his legs. I always felt guilty fooling my old dog that way, but an idea of going anywhere close to those monkeys without him was something I wouldn't even consider. I waited until I was a good way into the bottoms before I started my monkey calling. Taking an apple from my pocket, I held it out in front of me and I said, "Here, Jimbo! Come on, boy! I got an apple for you." I never felt so silly in all my life. I was blushing all over. I could feel 100 people watching me. Not seeing or hearing anybody, I walked a little way in the game trail and I said, "Jimbo, where are you, boy? Come on." The only thing my calling attracted that time was an old hog that almost scared me to death. With a loud grunt, he took off through the river bottoms. "Rowdy, what's the matter with that crazy old hog? He must think I'm a bear or something." Grumbling to myself about how scary hogs were, I walked a little way, stopped, and started calling again. "Come on, Jimbo! I'm your friend. Come over here." Rowdy couldn't understand what was going on. He knew that I was calling something, but I wasn't using his name, and he was all mixed up. On hearing him whimper, I looked behind and saw him sitting on his rear, with his ears standing straight up looking at me with an expression on his face. Puzzled expression. Still burned up about that old hog scaring me like that, I said, "Rowdy, if you keep looking at me like that, I'll send you to the house. May sound crazy to you, but I'm calling a monkey. I don't know any other way to call a monkey." I was walking along, calling, looking, and listening for monkeys when all at once I smelled something. It was a sweet, stinky, sour odor, and I recognized it right away because I had smelled it before. Somewhere close by, somebody was running a whiskey still, and what I was smelling was the odor of the fermenting sour mash. "Rowdy, Some moonshiners have set up a whiskey still down here in the bottoms. I bet it belongs to those Gravely boys. They couldn't sleep good if they didn't have their old whiskey around them somewhere. I found several stills were prowling the hills and river bottoms, but I always kept my mouth shut about finding them. I had heard it wasn't a good idea for anyone to start blabbing about the location of a whiskey still. The moonshiners didn't like it. I always figured that I had enough trouble of my own. I didn't care to have a bunch of moonshiners chasing me all over the country. I was standing there sniffing the air to locate the direction of the whiskey still so I could stay away from it, when I heard Jimbo Monkey let out a squall. Then I heard the little monkey screeching and chattering, making all kinds of racket. Listen, Rowdy, that's the most noise I've heard them monkeys make. They must be having a good time. Let's see what they're doing. Leaving the game trail, I started picking my way through the underbrush in the direction of all the commotion. As I walked along, I noticed that the odor of whiskey mash was getting stronger and stronger. I found the monkeys and the whiskey still at the same time. I was so shocked by what I saw, I dropped the apple I was holding in my hand. I just stood there with my mouth open, trying to figure out what I was looking at. Jimbo was standing up close to a mash barrel with a tin can in one paw, holding on to the rim of the barrel. He was looking straight at us, and he didn't seem to be mad or scared. Taking my eyes off Jimbo, I looked at the little monkeys. They were all milling around the whiskey still, screeching, chattering, and chasing. Some were lying on the ground, rolling over, kicking up the dust. They didn't care that Rowdy and I were even there. Rowdy, there's something wrong with these monkeys, I said. They're not acting right. Just then one little monkey, no bigger than a small cat, climbed up onto the rim of the old whiskey barrel. He stood there for a second, squealing his head off, leaned over, and kerplunk, fell in the barrel. This scared me. I didn't want to see my $2 drowned. I was about to dash over and lend the little fellow a hand when Jimbo let out a squall, darted over to the barrel, reached in with his long arm, caught the monkey, pulled him out. The little monkey was a mess. He was sopping wet and covered with foam from the fermenting whiskey mash. Immediately, about a dozen monkeys darted over and started licking him all over. The little fellow just squatted on the ground with his eyes closed. I laughed and watched what was going on. I realized why the monkeys were acting so strangely. Holy smokes, Rowdy! No wonder these monkeys are acting so funny. They've been drinking that sour mash. I think they're drunk. I was too surprised because I knew practically all animals were fond of the stuff. Rowdy was watching the monkeys. I could tell by his actions, no matter if they were drunk or sober, he didn't want anything to do with them. Picking up the apple I had dropped, I said, Rowdy, you stay here. I'm going to see if I can make friends with Jimbo. But I'll tell you one thing. If those monkeys jump me like they did last time, and you run out on me, I'll make you sleep in the corn crib with Daisy's cats for 90 days. Rowdy didn't like cats at all. Holding the apple out to Jimbo, I took a few steps. I said, Come on, Jimbo. Look what I brought you. Come on now, let's be friends. Jimbo didn't make a move. He just stood there, holding the tin can in his paw, blinking his eyes, looking first at me and then at the apple. I was so scared I was shaking like a corn tassel in the high wind. If Jimbo opened his big mouth and jumped at me, I would have fainted dead away. I know I would have, but I had the feeling he had recognized his name and was more curious. Taking a few more steps, I said, Come on, Jimbo. Here's an apple. Come on, Jimbo. I'm not going to hurt you. That time I got a little reaction out of Jimbo. Bouncing up and down on his stubby legs, he pushed out his rubbery lips into the shape of an O. Ooh, ooh, grunted at me a few times. I don't know what you're saying, Jimbo, but whatever it is, sounds all right to me. Just don't get mad now. Everything will be all right. With my confidence built up, I eased over quite close to Jimbo, held the apple out to him, and said, Look what I brought you. Come on now, let's stop fighting each other and be friends. I'm not going to hurt you. As if he were trying to read my mind, Jimbo just stood there with no expression, looking me straight in the eye. And then dropping the tin can he was holding in his paw, he reached over and took the apple from my hand. I wouldn't have been more pleased if I had found a bottle with a genie in it. All the time that Jimbo was eating the apple, I kept talking to him, told him what a smart monkey he was and how much I wanted to be his friend. But because I had given him an apple, Jimbo decided he wanted to give me something. Picking up the tin can, he reached down to the barrel, he filled it full of sour mash, and he offered it to me. No, that's okay, Jimbo. You don't owe me. I don't think I like that stuff. My refusing to take the can of sour mash made Jimbo madder than I had seen him. He threw the can to the ground. He started grunting, squalling, and bouncing. Then he started throwing sticks and dirt at me, everything else he could get his paws on. Some of the little monkeys came over to show their dislike. They stood on their skinny hind legs, screeching and chattering and showing their teeth. By refusing Jimbo's offer of sour mash, you would have thought that I had committed one of the sins that was unforgivable by all monkeys. I backed off to one side. I waited until the monkeys quieted down a little bit. Then I started talking to Jimbo again. I don't know what you're getting mad for, Jimbo. I didn't do anything. Come on now, let's not fight. Let's be friends. There was one thing I could say for Jimbo. He had a lot of determination. He picked up the can, he filled it full of sour mash, he offered it to me again. I would have no more refused that can of sour mash that time than Santa would have whipped one of his reindeer. The last thing in the world I wanted was to make Jimbo mad. I didn't figure I would have to drink it. I figured if I took it, Jimbo would be satisfied. How wrong I was. Jimbo didn't seem to like the idea of my just standing there holding the can of mash in my hand. He started getting mad again, looking me straight in the eye and waving his long arms. He started grunting and squalling. It was plain, to me anyhow, that he wanted me to drink some of the stuff. All right, Jimbo, all right, I said in desperation. Don't get mad. If it'll make you feel any better, I'll have a little sip with you. I tipped the can up and I took a couple of swallows. Jimbo couldn't have been more pleased than anything. He grunted, clapped, and he turned a few somersaults. At first, the sour mash tasted so nasty, I thought I was going to get sick. Then all at once, it didn't taste so nasty. My tongue and throat started tingling and tickling, and my stomach got as warm as eggs in an incubator. I burped a couple times, and I said to no one in particular, well, what do you know? This stuff doesn't taste half bad. I sat on a stump, I tipped the can up, and I took 3 swallows. From the bush where he was hiding, Rowdy could see that I was getting along all right with the monkeys. He came crawling out of the brush, heading straight for me. He was always jealous if I talked to or pretended any kind of animal or petted any kind of animal that wasn't him. He couldn't even stand to see me petting an old hog or one of Daisy's cats. I held my breath and I watched to see what the monkeys would do. They all kept their eyes on Rowdy, but they made no effort to jump on him. Rowdy was showing these monkeys that he was the friendliest hound dog in the world. His long tail was fanned in the air and he was whimpering and inching along on the ground 1 foot at a time. He was a very happy dog when he finally made it to my side in one piece. To show Rowdy that he wanted to be his friend, Jimbo found another can, filled it full of sour mash, and set it down. Rowdy didn't figure anything that I ate or drank was plenty good enough for him. Rowdy always did figure that anything I ate or drank was plenty good enough for him. He leaned over and stuck the tip of his long pink tongue into the sour mash, then looked at me. You see, Rowdy, I said, it doesn't taste half bad, does it? Rowdy must have liked the taste, for he lapped up the whole can. Jimbo was the best bartender that anyone ever saw. Every time our cans were empty, he saw to it they were filled up again. By this time, I was feeling so good I wanted to sing. Waving the can of sour mash and tapping the ground with my foot, I sang all the songs I knew, and I made up more. Because I was singing, Rowdy decided he too would sing. Lifting his whole old dog head in the air, he started howling a hound dog tune. Boo! Boo, boo, boo! Not to be left out by any of the merrymaking, the monkeys gathered around us, screeching and chattering. Jimbo danced all over the place. The first thing I knew, monkeys were climbing all over me. They poked around in my ears with little fingers, explored my eyes, up my nose, and my mouth. Rowdy was going through the same thing. Monkeys were all around him, looking through the hair on his body like they were looking for fleas. They lifted up his ears and peered down in him. They played with his tail, even inspected his teeth. Rowdy was really enjoying his newfound friends. With friendly whimpers, he was lapping every monkey he could reach with his long tongue. I never knew when I went to sleep, but I sure knew when I woke up. It was late in the evening, and I was as cold as a bullfrog. My stomach felt if I had swallowed a handful of cockleburrs, and I was sicker than I had ever been in my life. My head felt as big as a wagon wheel. It was pounding and throbbing, and it felt like it was going to split wide open at any second. I couldn't even see good, and what I could seemed to be all blurry and moving. Every one of the trees that I could see was leaning sideways. I thought if I could close my eyes and give my head a good shake, it might straighten things out. I tried, and I squalled like a stepped-on cat with the pain. My head felt if it had exploded, and I was sure my eyeball had popped out onto the ground. I couldn't understand why I was so cold. My teeth were chattering. I had goosebumps all over me. When I finally did discover why I was so cold, I jumped straight up and hollered, "Where are my pants? My breeches are gone!" I still had on my shirt and shorts, but that didn't cover up very much of me. I looked around for my pants, but they were nowhere to be seen. "Rowdy, wake up! Rowdy! You're not a good watchdog. You laid sound asleep and let someone steal my breeches. Help me find them." Rowdy got to his feet, but he just groaned and lay down. He didn't seem to care if I had found my breeches or not. "I know you're sick, Rowdy, but you're not sicker than I am. Get up. Help me find my pants. It'll be dark and I can't be running around in these bottoms half naked like this." Rowdy got to his feet again, but made no effort to walk. He just stood there, stiff as a board, with his head down and his legs spread out. I started over to see if I could help him, but something went wrong. I couldn't seem to walk straight and kept angling off to one side. I missed Rowdy by a good 5 feet, had to grab hold of a sapling to keep from falling over. I was drunk, and that's all there was to it. After a lot of grunting and whimpering, Rowdy got to his feet again and started over to see if he could help me. But he seemed to be about the same shape as I was in. He wobbled all over the place. Boy, Rowdy," I said, holding my head in my hands. "I don't know that sour mash would make a fellow this sick. I thought it had to be made into whiskey before it could make you drunk. I had forgotten all about the monkeys, and when they did cross my mind, I started looking for them. I looked all around the still and up in the trees, but there wasn't a monkey around. It was so still that all I could hear was the gurgling of sour mash fermenting in the barrel. The very sound of that stuff gurgling made me sicker than ever. Rowdy, I don't know where my breeches went. I don't think anyone would want them because they were patched. I wonder if that Jimbo monkey took them and ran away. I'll bet anything he wanted us to get drunk, that dirty monkey, so he could take my breeches." Up until that time, I hadn't given much thought about how I was going to explain to Mama about losing my breeches. When I did think about it, I got shook up. There was no way for me to explain this to Mama. As far back as I could remember, Rowdy and I had run along those game trails like two wild deer. But on that day, the trail didn't seem to be any bigger than walking on a string. The way I could stay on it was by holding the bushes. Rowdy was behind me. He was having the same amount of trouble. We couldn't keep ourselves pointed in the right direction, but we finally made it to the rail fence around our field, and there we ran into another problem. Rowdy and I jumped that old fence like 1,000 times, but that day it looked like it was 20 feet high. Rowdy didn't even try to jump the fence. He found a wide place between two rails low to the ground, and he wiggled his way through. I made it to the top of the fence okay, but then something went wrong. I started getting dizzy, swerving all over, and fell plumb off. For a few seconds, I thought I broke my neck. When I finally reached the gate going into their yard, I thought I had it made. But just as I opened the gate, all my luck ran off and left me. Daisy came around the corner of the house, humming a little tune on her crutch. She took one look at me standing there half naked. By the expression of her face, you would have thought she had stepped on a snake. Her mouth flew open and she gasped like she swallowed a butterfly. Jayberry, where on earth are your breeches? It's not nice to run around half naked like that. What's the matter with you anyway? I didn't say a word. There wasn't anything I could say. I just groaned, wrapped both arms around the gatepost, and held on. Daisy came over and looked at me. Jayberry, you're as white as an egg. Are you sick? Daisy, I'm sicker than I've ever been in my life. I think I'm dying, I said. When I told Daisy I thought I was dying, it kind of scared her. She caught hold of my arm and said, Here, let me help you into the house. Before I could unwind myself from the gatepost, Daisy turned loose of my arm, stepped back, and said, Phew! What's that horrible smell? I didn't say anything. I wouldn't look at her. Daisy stuck up her nose and started sniffing. Then, with a frown on her face, she stepped back and she said in a disgusted voice, Jayberry, you're not sick. You're drunk. You smell like an old whiskey bottle. I can't help it if I'm drunk. I'm sick just the same. Looking towards the house, Daisy yelled in a voice louder than I had ever heard her yell in her whole life. Mama! Mama! Come and look at Jayberry! He's as drunk as a boiled owl and naked as a jaybird. Mama must have had a pot in her hands when she heard Daisy yell, because I heard something hit the floor with a loud bang. I wanted to run, but knew if I turned loose of that fence post, I'd fall flat on my face. Mama came sailing out of the house, looking more surprised than she did the time she found the young hoot owl I had put under a sitting hen. In the late evening shadows, and with me hugged up to the close of the fence post, Mama didn't see me right away. She looked up at Daisy and said, Daisy, what did you say? Look at him, Mama, Daisy said, pointing her finger at me. He's so drunk, he's cross-eyed, and he's lost his britches. Can you imagine? No, said Mama in a slow, cold voice. I can't imagine anything like that. Go smell him, Mama. He smells like an old whiskey bottle, and you can see for yourself he's lost his britches. With a deep frown on her face and an uncertain look on her eyes, Mama came and looked me over from my head to my feet. She grabbed me by the arm, she shook me a little, and she said in a hard voice, Jayberry, are you drunk? I guess I am, Mama. I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to? Mama shouted. What kind of excuse is that? Who gave you the whiskey? You tell me right now. Somebody is going to get into trouble for this. Did those Gravely boys get you drunk? I haven't seen anybody, Mama. It was that Jimbo monkey that got me drunk. Oh, for heaven's sake, Jayberry, Mama said. You don't expect me to believe that, do you? It's the truth, Mama. There was a whiskey still down in the bottoms. I found the monkeys there. They were drinking sour mash. I had some drinks with them. I didn't know it'd make you drunk. Where are your pants, young man? Said Mama. I don't know. Mama, I just went to sleep, and when I woke up, they were gone. I think Jimbo Monkey got away with them. Look, Mama! Daisy let out a squeal. Rowdy's drunk, too! Poor old Rowdy. He could tell by the tone in Mama's voice that the fat was in the fire, and he was trying hard to disappear altogether. He was trying his best to get under the porch as quick as he could. Mama looked at Rowdy, and then looking up at the heavens, she closed her eyes and she said, Dear Lord, what have I done to deserve this? Grabbing me by my left ear and twisting hard, she said, Come on, young man, you're going to bed. Your monkey hunting days are over. I've had it. Mama wasn't too gentle about putting me in bed. She just kind of wadded me up and crammed me under the covers. I fell asleep immediately. I woke up sometime during the night and I heard Mama and Papa. Mama talking to Papa, and she sounded upset. I heard her say, As far as I know, he's never lied to me. But I can't believe that a bunch of monkeys could get a boy drunk. I still think someone got him drunk. Papa laughed. No, I don't think so. I knew there was a still down in those woods because while I was working, I could smell it from time to time. I can smell that sour mash when the wind was just right. I don't care if there are 100 stills down there. Who ever heard of a bunch of monkeys getting a boy drunk? The mama wanted to know. It probably happened just like he said it did, Papa said. The monkeys found those still, and you know as well as I do, animals love sour mash. It's made of everything that animals like: sugar, corn, malt, and yeast. There's probably more to this than we know. I'll have a talk to him in the morning. We'll find out about it. You'd better talk to him. I don't think I can take any more of this monkey business. If that monkey is as smart as everyone thinks he is, he might catch Jayberry down on the river and drown him. Papa laughed. I don't think anything like that's going to happen. Mama never should have said anything about Jimbo drowning me, because after I went to sleep, I had a horrible dream. I dreamed that monkeys caught Rowdy and me down in the bottoms. They threw us in the deep well that was half full of ice water. Rowdy and I were swimming for our lives. I could see all the monkeys looking down at us, laughing. I woke up swimming all over the bed. End of chapter 9.